Hi friends, I'm Andrew Carruthers, Education Director for Samvia. A haircut that has quickly made its way from trend into just a common technique that we're seeing every day in the hair salon is the undercut. Really simply, it's just any time that we detach shorter hair underneath longer hair. So sometimes we call it undercut, underlayer, depending on how extreme it is, but really the point here is that we see this very often, whether it's an entire haircut or maybe even just a fringe where there's some longer pieces floating over top of shorter pieces. The big question we usually get on this is, where do I place that detachment point on the head shape? So this particular haircut is, I would say, somewhere between dramatic and mildly dramatic for most clients. So when we look at where the detachment in this particular haircut is placed, it's placed just below the vertical round of the head. Sometimes we call that the parietal ridge. We call it the vertical round. On that lower portion of the vertical round on her hair, which is medium textured, this gives us a looseness and peekaboos of the shorter hair from underneath. So for this particular density, this gave us the image that we were looking for. So those are the two things you really want to be concerned with. What's the density and what's the look that you're going for? So one, think about fine hair. If I have very fine hair and I want this same sort of coverage over the short pieces, and I just want the short pieces to peek through if she moves her hair just right, if I go this high with the parting, it's probably just going to look like wisps of hair sitting over top of a short haircut. So in that case, we'd want to drop the parting lower so that there's a little more density from the top to float over top of the short pieces underneath. Now, let's go the opposite direction. Let's say she's got chawamba hair. She's got a ponytail like this big around. Then we're going to be able to part higher on the head shape to allow more short hair, and even small amounts of hair here might be enough that when this falls over it, it might be dense enough to get the effect you want. So how do you make that determination as you're parting off the haircut? Here's a little tip for you. Use your hand. So after you make your parting, take your hand and place it underneath. Now, the color of the hair on this particular mannequin head is somewhat skin toned, so it's not going to be as dramatic as, a natural color. But usually with a blonde or a brown, you can see the skin through quite easily. So that's a great way to do it, is you can place the hand under, drape the hair over top, and you'll be able to see how translucent that is. Maybe if it's very light hair, or maybe if you did have this color of hair, you could use a dark towel instead, and that's going to give you a little more contrast so you can see that density. Now, the last thing that you need to think about is the overall shape itself, because the lower that this sits, the less density it's going to change underneath, right? The higher it sits, the more density. So again, if you're looking for a very collapsed shape, a very lean shape, we may have to take the parting higher. If we're looking kind of a fuller, wider type of a shape with just a little bit of a subtle texture underneath, then that parting is going to fall lower. So again, think about the density that you have in front of you and your desired result as far as how much of that short hair do you want to see coming through, how much do you want hidden. Then lastly, you want to think about what's the overall shape that you're trying to create, and how does that parting, where it sits on the head, affect the overall shape. It's a lot of information to think about, and honestly, there's a lot of trial and error that goes into these haircuts at times. That's why these mannequin heads can be so beneficial. It's also why great live hands-on education can be beneficial as well. You can bring the Samvia team into your salon, friends. We can come in and do hands-on classes with you. And you can find out more about that. Just go to samvia.com and click on the Education tab. So we hope you grabbed some really good tips so that the next time you start parting off these detached shapes, you have a little bit more of a concept of where to go and how to figure out if it's going to give you the shape that you want. If you have any questions, thoughts, give us your ideas on how to place that parting. We'd love to see those. Put them in the box below. Thanks again for watching. I'm Andrew Carruthers, Education Director for Sam Villa.